All right, this is a video, a part of the Oral History Project at Edmonds Museum and Edmonds Woodbury High School History Club. Edmonds Museum is glad to have some guests here today. We have Harry and Ada Robinson, who are local folks, Snohomish County folks, who and also Edmonds Tiger graduates. And I'm Jeff Bennett, along with Stephanie Roper, Edmonds Woodbury High School History Club, and to talk and have a conversation about growing up in South Snohomish County. Well, first off, I have to ask both about your names. So, Ada, since you're the younger one, we'll start with you first. So, your parents, they had this baby, and then how was the name Ada?
Ada. My grandmother, she was Ada Mary.
Ah.
And my mother's name was Jean, so I got Ada Jean.
Oh, you're Ada Jean. Okay.
Ada Jean Dick. Yeah.
Many kids in your family? Were you, how many kids? Do you have brothers and sisters?
3. I had 2 sisters. There were 3 of us girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you pretty much have always known the Alderwood Manor area.
Yeah.
So you grew up there.
Yeah.
And Harry? Harry. Mom and Dad, you were born and you were Harry. What was the origin for that?
My dad's father's name was Harry. He had no middle name, and so I have no middle name.
Oh, really? We can make one up today.
Create problems.
Yeah. Oh, my word. Okay. Well, both of you, Chuck LeWarn, a friend of the museum, said, these are people you should talk to because they spent so much time as young people growing up in the Alderwood Manor area. And tell me a little bit about Alderwood Manor as young kids growing up. I mean, did you both go to the same grade school? I mean,
yeah.
you knew each other in grade school?
No.
No, but did
2 years ahead of me.
2 years ahead.
Yeah.
But did you both go to that grade school?
Yeah.
It was called Alderwood Manor Grade School,
Right.
which is geographically south, across the street from the present-day Linwood Convention Center.
Right.
And there was sort of an elevated area.
Right.
And was that K6? Grades
No,
K
there
through?
was no K when we started. It was 1 through 8.
Oh, 1 through 8.
Yeah.
Did you go to kindergarten?
No.
No? A lot of kids didn't back then.
My
didn't
sister,
have
who
it.
was 2 years younger,
Oh, okay.
went to kindergarten.
Yeah,
They-
yeah. But for the most part, everything started with grade 1
Wow.
at Alderwood.
Right.
And Ada, did you always go to Alderwood grade school? That was
Yeah,
your
they
for
were
all
across the
six?
street.
Yeah, and so you're destined. You had that you went there, everything
Yeah.
like that. Harry, same thing.
Same thing, except I lived out by Floral Hills, and we were right on the edge with Bothell.
Oh.
And we were in Edmonds, and the people up the road were in Bothell, but you couldn't get to Bothell from here. You had to come way down and go around by Floral Hills. So
Oh,
those
I
kids went
see.
to Edmonds also.
Yeah, I see. So you're both Edmonds High School graduates, class of 55, Harry, and class of 57. And so as young people growing up in your grade school years, you were out by Floral Hills. Tell me about the Floral Hills area. That was pretty rural at that
It
time.
was.
I mean, just so, how,
When I was in grade school, I'd say, I can remember for sure, 4th, 5th grade, the road in front of our house was 2 tracks with grass down the middle. Because there were only 2 houses beyond our house.
oh my word.
And if you saw a car go by within 3 miles of your house, you saw the color, you knew who it was.
Oh my word.
Even in the 8th grade, sometimes I'd walk home from school, stay late for softball or something,
Yeah.
and 3.5 miles, might see 4 cars.
No kidding.
And if
Oh,
it
my
was
word.
one of the Forsgren ladies, there were 2 ladies named Forsgren who lived about a mile east, they would pick me up, take me clear home,
Oh my.
and come back. A couple of nice ladies.
Wow. Were there school buses for you to go to, so you could get to Alderwood grade school on the school bus and everything like that?
The way we got to Alderwood grade school was the bus would start in Alderwood, go out to Martha Lake, come over Hilltop, then go up into Briar, and then come back to Alderwood. And for the high school bus, it did the same thing, except when they came back from Briar, they went down 212th by Halls Lake
Yeah.
to 99, then back up to 196th, and then down to Edmonds. About a 45-minute ride.
Was the country out there by Floral Hills where there's still at that time any sort of like farming operations or dairy or chickens or anything particular you can recall as a young guy?
Well, they had chickens here and there, and they had a
Yeah.
lot of places that used to have chickens that they just used for other things.
Yeah.
But there was no big farming of any sort out there. People always had gardens,
Yeah, yeah.
but for somebody to make a living on it, really wasn't.
Yeah, it was just an aside. You could have people had big gardens. I grew up in
Oh, yeah.
Edmonds. My mom had a huge garden on down 196, and similar thing for you. It was country and
We lived downtown.
you lived in the more urban center.
Yeah,
Oh my! So
probably
190.
about 5 things that way and 5 or 6.
Tell about your horses and your orchard.
You had horses in an orchard.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
we had 40 nut trees in the front
Yeah.
and 40 more in back with
Wow.
fruit trees and
They had
pear
2.5
trees.
acres.
Oh my!
Yeah.
And your family house was roughly very close, almost on 196.
Do you know
Yeah.
where Washington Energy Services is?
Yes, yeah.
That's
That's
on
their 2.5
2.5
acres.
acres.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And so did you have your own horse that you would go?
Oh, we had 6 of them.
Oh, you had 6 horses. Oh my word!
Yeah.
And what nut trees? I mean,
Hazel.
hazelnuts,
And
everything.
then they had a long one about this one. I can't remember. It starts
Yeah.
with L, but I don't remember the rest of it.
Was that did the kids have chores to go? Oh, you guys go gather up some
We
of those, or
just
or you just
wandered when we wanted. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, we had to tell where we were going. But
yeah, come back before dark.
yeah, basically.
No, it's interesting about Alderwood Manor. I was talking with Dale Hoggins and Donna about, and one of the topics that kind of came up was South Snohomish County. After the timber was removed, there were organizations that came in, and I think these were on 5-acre plots where egg production was advertised. Is that fairly accurate? I mean, did you remember some of that? Like, tell me about some of the egg industry things that you might have watched or witnessed.
Well, if you talk to Jack Eschrick, he can just tell you exactly how it worked, because that's how his parents and their partner made their living. That's
Oh,
all
really?
they did was raise chickens for eggs.
What was the name of? Is it a family or it was a family business? It was
I
pretty. It was
don't
one of the
know what
big ones.
Name of the,
I don't remember.
but I should get you on to Dwight Offer. Dwight was older than Jack, so
Mhm.
Dwight had a .22 rifle, and he would go hunting rats all the time in the chicken houses.
Oh, 'cause
Because
they-
they were all over the place. So
Oh,
he's
yeah.
got great stories about
Oh, my.
chasing down rats. His dad with a baseball bat, and him with the .22.
Oh
And,
my word! Oh,
it's something else.
jeez. Both of you went to grade school, Alderwood. Were there junior highs for you both?
They didn't start junior high until after us.
Yeah.
She was the
Oh.
last class that didn't go to junior high.
Oh, I see. Because it would be K6, and then everyone went to the high school, and then included grade 7. Is that kind of how it worked?
No,
Or-
Edmonds, not Edmonds, but Esperance. There were Alderwood Grade School, Edmonds Grade School, and kind of a half school out at Esperance.
Oh,
you know
okay.
what that is?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. And Esperance, my understanding from Bob Burton, who you're going to talk to next week or something, is that they only went, I think, to the 6th grade.
Uh-huh.
But Alderwood and Edmonds, as far as I know, were 1 through 8. Now, it could have been Edmonds Elementary might have sent some over to the high school if they had too many and there was
Yeah.
room at the high school.
Yeah.
But Alderwood was 1 through 8, and then later K through 8. And what they
Oh.
did, instead of building a new school, Alderwood was a brick building,
Mhm.
and they built a wing out back when I was either 7th or 8th grade,
Mhm.
and they had the 1st, 2nd, 3rd graders out there. That was the
And
big
kindergarten.
boom for kids, the baby boom after
Oh
the
yeah,
war.
post-World War II baby boomers. Yeah.
Yeah, because it used to be one bus ran everywhere, and then it got so out by our place, there might be 25 kids at a bus stop. And
Oh,
so
my.
you didn't go too far because there were so many kids in the area, they had to get more buses.
So for the Edmonds district, I think Hilltop that was sort of an older school. I didn't realize that's sort of a more established school. Hilltop Elementary kind of eventually would exist.
Well,
out
it
there?
eventually exists. That was on my uncle's land.
Oh, but originally it was just Alderwood, Edmonds downtown, and Esperance in a small scale.
That was it.
That was
in the
it.
8th grade,
Yeah.
when I was in the 8th grade, that's what they had.
Wow, my oh my. Did you guys have chores when you were little?
Oh, yeah.
Did you? I mean, what were some of the chores you remember? And I'll ask
Weeding.
Harry. Oh, really? Okay. I mean, you had big property and
Yeah.
horses, everything like that.
Right.
So in the garden.
Barn, yeah, the whole, I don't know how wide it was,
Yeah.
but the house and the driveway, they had fruit trees along them.
Yeah.
And over there was all kinds of, then we had this garden that's probably, I don't know, 50 yards. Why?
I don't know, it was
Yeah,
big.
it was
big.
Big. Everybody had
Yeah,
big gardens. Did
yeah.
your mom can things?
Oh,
And that was a
yes.
big
I still
part of.
do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
And not the freezer type, but the real canning where you
Yeah.
heated stuff up and the lids, everything like
Yeah.
that. How about you, Harry? Did you have chores and stuff like that as a young guy?
Yeah, we had a lot of time to play, honestly. But
Yeah.
when you needed the lawn mowed,
Yeah.
it wasn't Dad.
Oh.
And when you needed the garden weeded, it was all of us.
Yeah.
And anytime something came up, you just did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the funny things was they used to cut firewood. They had what they called old buzzsaw. Took an old, I think it was a Model 8, and what they would do is they'd raise one wheel off the ground in the back, and then they'd put a belt around. I don't remember if they put a special wheel on it. I think they did.
Yeah.
Then they put a big wide belt around that back to a hub that had a blade probably this big around on a cart
much
that they
safety
slid
equipment.
back and
And-
forth. Oh no,
and
the
no
blade,
car.
the blade
Guard.
so big and just out in the open.
Yeah.
And they'd lay the log up on there and push it into that saw, and that's how they would cut the firewood.
Oh my word. Firewood. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whoa.
it was
wow.
it was pretty dangerous. Nobody got hurt with
Yeah,
it, but
That was around to talk about it.
yeah.
Did both your homes? Did you guys have wood stoves in your home when
Yeah.
growing up? Wood stove and
Well, we had wood stove in the kitchen,
yeah.
but an oil burner was typical with a 50-gallon barrel outside
Yeah.
was typical
yeah.
for the heating of the house.
Yeah.
But there were 8 of us. I had 3 half-brothers, a sister, and a brother, and I was the youngest.
That's a big dinner table. Oh my word, 8 of you guys. Oh my. And you were the youngest for all the guys.
Well, when we
Wow.
moved in, of course, I don't remember it, but my mom told me that when we moved in, it was just what was eventually the front room. It was probably 20 by 16, one
Uh-huh.
room.
Yeah.
My dad had come over and decided to be a carpenter from Ellensburg,
Uh-huh.
and he built that house. And when we moved in, I was told there were no windows. They had tar paper over the windows, and there was a blanket over the door, and this was September.
Oh my
And
God.
the 8 of us moved into that room.
Oh my gosh.
It was different. No running water till about the 8th grade.
Jeez.
Well, you should tell about your dad brought you guys over
Oh.
and stopped on the road.
Yeah, Mom told about that. She says, he brought us over, and we're driving up. He stops, and he said, here we are. And she said, I looked around, all I see is forest. And she says, where?
Oh.
And it was back through the trees. And they eventually cut the trees down. And I remember when I was in early grade school, Dad would put dynamite under the stumps. And he'd have electric caps, so you'd get back over and pull the switch, and kaboom, up it would go. And
Oh my God.
They
It was
even
typical.
named it the big one that wouldn't come out.
yeah, he called it that during the war. He called it Old MacArthur. It was it was one they cut down for logging,
Yeah.
and it was I don't know what it was 8 feet across or something at the base, and so the middle of it got blown out. They tried burning it, so here was this big old round thing with holes in the side. That was-
The various weekends he tried to blow off parts of it or
Oh, he
something.
did all kinds of things.
What was his nickname? What was the nickname of it? The
Old
stuff?
MacArthur.
Old
So
MacArthur.
MacArthur was the general.
Oh yeah.
in the
I will
Pacific.
return. I may never leave or something.
Yeah, right.
Dug out Doug, I will return.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Oh wow. So you guys, you had chores, you right kind of in Floral Hills, 196 area, and then at some point you both end up down here, down in the Edmonds Bowl sort of area.
Yeah.
And I've talked to your generation, and they say the same sort of thing. There were Edmonds kids who lived in the Bowl. There were Esperance kids. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. There were Alderwood Manor kids. There maybe it's early, but Meadowdale. Was that kind of the chatter when you came to the high school? You weren't like beach kids or the Bowl kids. Was that
No.
accurate, or
No.
did you guys?
Well,
Was that a topic?
People didn't dislike each other being
Oh, no.
from the other
Yeah.
schools,
Well,
but
they had a car,
you
bad
knew
habit.
that you were from Alderwood or you were from Edmonds.
Yeah.
And Meadowdale wasn't called Meadowdale. It was just over there. Kind
Out
of
by Snake Road or something? Or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
Snake Road.
Yeah. Oh my word. And so obviously there must have been a bus like 196 down the hill to the high school.
Yeah, they had the bus down from where the building was.
The bus garage was
Yeah.
over.
Was it still roughly where it is today? The old bus garage? Because there was.
Remember, I think it was, wasn't it?
What?
The bus garage was always where it is by the mall, wasn't it?
By the mall, no, they had ones that were down the stairs. Remember?
Oh, they did park some
Yeah.
there, that's right.
Oh,
That's
so there were
right, they
maybe
did.
a couple
On the-
places
right
on
by
the east
the
side,
elementary
you
school.
came off the playground, and there was, I don't know,
by
20.
Aldwood Elementary.
Because you have to remember, there weren't that many buses.
Yeah.
Because there weren't that many kids. We had 165 or 168 in my class, according to which paper you believe.
Yeah.
And hers was 225 because they were getting bigger every year. But that's
Yeah.
the whole district.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause we got up to, we had 500 in
Yeah.
each senior class. Yours may have been that big.
Yeah, we did. By my year, 1970, we were getting pretty big and everything. So you went to Edmonds High School. Now, we talked with Bill Phillips a little bit ago, who started teaching in 1951. And teenagers will eventually watch some of this video. And so did you have Friday night dances
Yeah,
at the high school? Or there was another place
Masonic
nearby?
Temple.
Masonic Temple.
yeah.
Right downtown.
Every Friday after football.
Every Friday. So
Yeah.
football nights,
Right.
there was a dance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Were they like 9 to 12 or something? Or
I don't know, it was after the game
After the
until,
game.
After the game.
I don't know if it was 11:30. I don't remember the time for
11
sure.
o'clock.
All I know is when they played Mood Indigo, it was time to go home. That was always the last
It was
song.
over.
it was? Mood Indigo
I
was
think
the
that was
last
the song,
song.
wasn't
That was long, I think it was.
Okay. Oh, wow. All right.
When you heard that, you knew the party was over.
So to speak.
And a lot of the kids went to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of kids. And
And we walked, and we didn't have cars because Dad went to work and
Now, so, wait a sec. So how did you get from your houses to the dance and back? I mean,
well, when you were in high school, usually you or one of your friends had a car.
okay.
Or an older brother
Yeah.
or something. And so you always carpool. That's the way you
Yeah.
got there.
Some sort of teenage car. Young people may not know this, but were you both on trunk lines? When you used the
10-party
phones?
lines.
yeah.
Tell me about that. Because high school students today, they'll watch this thing. What are you talking about? What were party lines when it was a different definition?
Yeah.
What did that mean as a young girl when you picked up the phone? Was it always?
Well, seeing I lived in downtown, we only had like maybe four on it.
Oh,
And
four
then-
different families on that one line?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he had what?
The farther you live in the boonies, the more on the line. And the phone at our line, if it rang once, it was ours. If it rang twice at a time, that was the neighbors.
Okay.
And one time I had an awful thing after I'd moved out. My folks, all weekend long, the neighbor's phone would ring, and they didn't have answering. It just rang until they hung up. Well, what happened was they advertised a horse for sale, and it sold immediately. But people called all weekend. They got tired of the calling, so they put their phone under a bunch of pillows so they couldn't hear it. And my folks got to hear it just hour upon hour over the weekend.
Oh my God.
When you were on the phone, there was almost for sure somebody listening in, almost for sure.
Oh.
And two ladies up the road they could see each other out the windows, and they would talk, and one of them would say, I gotta go put something on for dinner, I'll be back. She'd lay the phone down, she'd go fix dinner, and then she'd come back, and you can't make a call when somebody's on the line. That's life.
The definition of a party line in a different time period. Wow. Okay.
Another couple that were friends of my folks, they had their phone right on the wall here behind their couch, so the cord came down like this. They would sit down and they'd pull the cord, and the phone was like this, and it would rock it up, and then it would be off. So you could hear them talking. You'd have to drive or walk a mile and a half and say, Hank, hang up your phone. And they never did learn to not put it behind the couch.
Oh,
Crazy.
wow. So you guys both were at Edmonds High School. High school students would be interested. So you had what were the kinds of what were the kind of opportunities for girls in high school? Now we have all these sports and things like that. So Ada, as a high school student, do you remember kind of things you were involved in high school? Anything particular?
Just
You went to classes?
You got all your sports, you just didn't have them between schools.
right, yeah.
What kind of sports were you able to do at the high school?
Oh, something that's, I don't remember,
GAA?
a kickball type thing.
Yeah.
There was tennis and there were baseball,
Uh-huh.
but we just played
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
We didn't have anyone come in and
You weren't playing other schools and
No,
things like that.
no.
It's really interesting because
Girls didn't do that.
no.
yeah, And were there any other, I mean, there was drama, there
Volleyball.
was volleyball after
Yeah,
school with the
yeah.
girl, I think, would they call it GAA at that time, maybe, or something like that?
Yeah, they gave letters and
Did they?
stuff according to what all
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so you'd have all these
Oh,
rings around
patches.
All
your
kinds of
sweater, you know?
Yeah. Where did you, because I think they had obviously the school newspaper, the yearbook. Were there any other organizations that you remember, kids, for particularly girls, that were really, it was popular for girls at the high school at that time? Do you remember?
They had all kinds of clubs.
Yeah,
Clubs?
Uh,
Okay.
Like,
yeah,
there was the Tiger Club, and there was the High Y Club, which was supposed to be a religious club, but it really wasn't. High Y was
High
supposed to be
Y.
a Christian group. That's what they called it, High Y.
Yeah, okay.
I think it was for youth or something like
Yeah.
that. That's what the Y was for. I never did figure it
Oh.
out. But most of them were just social things.
Yeah, yeah.
Something
Okay.
to do.
And for the guys, obviously there was football, basketball, track, and those kinds of things.
Baseball,
Yeah, and the football games were played right here at the Civic Center on
On the
Friday
sand
nights.
field.
On the sand field.
Now, some people say this isn't true, but it is true, I'll guarantee you. The number of lights they had on the whole field, there were 4 poles of lights down each side, 4 lights on each pole, and they had 8 poles total. They had 32 lights on the entire football field.
Wow.
And I remember a guy I met later on in college came up from Olympia for a game, and he said, we kept waiting for him to turn the lights on.
They were hard.
And they were on.
Oh my
And it was all
gosh.
sand, just pure
Yeah.
100% sand.
Wow. And I'm assuming maybe PE classes must have used it at some level, maybe
Yeah.
because there was a field house out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
the-
still there. And,
yeah, it's still
and
there.
so maybe I'm figuring PE classes at different levels went out there.
We
And,
played volleyball in that
Well,
one.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
upper part,
Yeah.
it was kind of a low ceiling.
Yes.
There were backboards. It looked
This,
like you.
it was so old that the volleyball, you, the gals got it like this, and then when you got it, then you got 2 chances.
Yeah, you
on
couldn't,
each
you
side.
couldn't hit it. You had to pop it up
You had
and
to
then
pop
hit
it
it.
up
Oh, yeah.
yourself
Because
and then do it.
girls couldn't play volleyball. Everybody knew that.
Oh my.
I don't say the boys felt that way, but the community or the country
Yeah.
was like that before Title IX.
As you guys were going through high school, you graduated 55 and 57. There's an interesting transition that must have occurred. The county must have really been sprouting and growing fast in
It
there.
started,
And just before you graduated, and do you remember much about that? I mean, things must have changed fairly quickly because the new high school opened, I think, in the fall of 57 or 58, the one up where it is now.
Yeah.
Do you remember those times a little bit, like fast-paced in schools and change?
Not really.
Well, the main thing I remember is after that, because I started teaching in the Edmonds district in 1960,
Oh,
and we were opening schools all the time. So I was here from 60 to 97.
oh my.
And we moved, one year we went to school in San Diego. It's the only
You went to
time
school.
either of us lived
We
away
had a
from here.
vacation for a year.
But, Sputnik went up, and
Yeah.
the U.S. went crazy because how could those dumb Russians put them up? Well, it wasn't the Russians, it was the Germans.
Oh,
They
yeah.
took the German scientists. Well, of course, we took Werner von Braun.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when the Russians put theirs up, we were going to put one up. And von Braun says, I can do it. And they didn't want him to do it because that would be the Germans. So we tried, and they kept blowing up and falling over. And finally they said, okay, Werner. So he put a little one up. And
Wow.
so they then created the National Science Foundation. And it's a big thing that's changed in the schools over the years because all these people I'm going to tell you about have retired. But you could go to school any place almost that you wanted to and get paid for by the government. We had 3 kids when I started going, so they paid you, so much for your spouse, and so much for each dependent. So in 1963, I went to school in San Diego and got double my teaching pay to go to school. No taxes on it,
No kidding.
no tuition, no fees.
Because they just really needed to get teachers out there as
They
fast
were
as
math
possible.
and science teachers. I put in for 10 places to go for an academic year and could have gone to 7 of them.
Oh my.
So you could go almost anywhere. In summers, summer after summer, you go to school. They pay, the way the schedules are. The
Yeah.
more you go to school, the more money you make.
Yeah.
And so you got that in addition. to it.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't double what a top teacher made, it was double what a teacher in the first couple of years made.
Oh, my.
And
Which wasn't
it made a
lot.
big difference. And
Yeah.
it made a big difference in the background. I won't say they were better teachers, I'll just say we had more math in our background. I ended up with about 150 hours of math, and the government paid for about 100 of them.
Yeah.
And so your backgrounds in math were much more than the typical person. If it hadn't been for that, I'd have probably started with my 46 hours from the U, and
Yeah.
that might have been it.
Yeah. Wow.
Huge difference.
So you started teaching in '60. Where was your first teaching assignment?
I was at Linwood Junior. You couldn't get in the high school because there were no openings.
Yeah.
But I was at Linwood Junior for 2 years, then I went to Terrace High School for 1 year, then to school in San Diego for 1 year, and then 33 years at Meadowdale.
33 years at Meadowdale. Oh, my word.
My
And,
3 girls went to Meadowdale.
Oh, that's cool.
Didn't have him over
One of the funny things that happened when our youngest was a senior, she went out with a boy for the first time with this boy, and it was the senior ball. So he shows up at the door, so it rings, so I go down and answer the door. He looks at me kind of funny, and he asked if Donna was there. I said yes, so off they go. He barely gets out of the driveway, and he looks at Donna and says, "What's Mr. Robinson doing at your house?"
Oh,
And she said, "Think about it."
oh my word. Oh. You know, you made an interesting point about see, Sputnik was 1957, which everyone was all freaked out about it, and it's interesting you should say that because you're exactly right. That did cause a ripple for a lot of as a young boy at Westgate Elementary. Oh, our teachers, we had these huge story problems, and they're called the new math, and it was terrifying. My teacher was terrified. We were all terrified, and because of story problems, I was afraid to become an adult, and because of all the story problems I would probably face. So, but anyway, so you were at Linwood Junior High, and that was the junior high model, I think, at that time, the
7, 8, 9.
7, 8, 9, and then ultimately at Terrace. So you must have been there when Terrace opened, new?
Terrace opened, I think in 1960, wasn't it? Not sure.
Early 60s, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there.
But so you were in there within the first 5 or so years, perhaps, when it started.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, see, a lot of the people that came over to Meadowdale came from Terrace and Edmonds, of course.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
that's the way they did things. Phil Hull, who maybe we'll be interviewing.
Yep, I will be interviewing Phil. Yep.
Well, Phil ended up, see, I taught 36 years.
Mhm.
I think Phil taught 42, if I'm
Yeah.
remembering
Mhm.
correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So Meadowdale, they were the Chiefs when it opened, but since then they've changed to become the Mavericks. And across the country, a lot of schools have made those adjustments. You know, figuring, well, can't use that term. We're going to be called the Mavericks. So, and you've wrapped up your teaching career at what year at Meadowdale?
97.
97. Okay. And did you teach math the entire time?
Yes.
Okay. Any physics or any other types of anything particular on that?
Well, one time they asked me to teach physics, and I had 14 hours of physics, and I told them I wasn't going to do it. They said, well, you can stay ahead of the kids. And I said, that's not how you teach. Well, I was going to tell you something about the old buses.
Mm-hmm.
When we lived out east of Alderwood there was a place, we called it the Gravel Pit Hill. I don't know, Logan Park, I think, is down at the bottom up by Swamp Creek. We had to walk 9/10 of a mile to the bus stop. And, that was when you were first grade or whatever. Well, then they finally came around a couple of years later and ran the bus. So it came up within probably a quarter mile of our house. Well, that was really good. But then the bus got a cracked block and it couldn't pull the Gravel Pit Hill.
Oh.
So we had to walk back down to the bottom. Then somebody got a bright idea. Why don't we reverse the route? Then they'll go down the Gravel Pit Hill. And so they did, and we had the bus back up by our house again.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
They used to
boy.
run an activity bus when my brothers were in high school and I was in grade school. This would have been in the late 40s. And it would run the whole district picking up kids to go to the football game.
Oh,
So
really?
it was a long, long run
Hey.
to pick them up, and they'd take you down to the game. Then
Wow.
after the game, they'd bring you back and dump
Oh,
you off
that's
a mile
really
from
neat.
home. And
Wow.
Except
but there
that
was
you
no
had a
danger.
snowstorm.
Yeah.
Nothing would happen to you. You could hitchhike with anybody who came by.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat. Oh,
Yeah,
wonderful.
very different.
You know, Alderwood Manor, to a lot of people now, since as you both grew up, has changed, so now people aren't sure where that exactly is. Do you recall any of the structures and things? I'm trying to think. There was a famous hardware store, I think, at some point.
Alderwood.
The Alderwood, which is now moved. There's that large structure on the north side of 196. Gosh, I want to say it's like a Masonic Lodge or something like that.
Masonic Temple.
Were there other structures that were like focal points for Alderwood Manor when you were very young?
There was a water tower up by the school, so everybody knew where that was.
Oh,
Yeah, they had their office up there.
yeah.
When they put water out to my folks' place, I was in the 8th grade when we finally got running water out there. And that's
in the
high-
8th grade?
Yeah.
Did you have a well prior to that?
We had a well,
Sort of.
but when my mom finally pumped a snake up out of the thing, my dad started hauling the water from Alderwood. When he'd come home from work, he'd have the old milk cans,
Yeah.
and he'd put the drinking water in the milk cans and bring it home in his car when he came home from work.
Oh my.
And he just got it from the granary, they called it, in Alderwood. He had they had running water there. The city folks had running water.
The
So,
city.
Well, in the grade school we went, that's the second one
Yeah.
in downtown.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Where they had that one across from the Mason.
right by the Masonic Temples
Temple,
where the
that's
original grade school
There was a post office, all in the one building.
Oh, no
You
kidding.
know. So there was a post office, there was the
Hardware
hardware
store.
store. And the people in the hardware store, just look up here, that's Silver's.
Oh my word.
And they had that, and they had a home behind,
Yeah.
Oh my word.
but it was attached to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
all in one.
Yeah.
One-stop shopping.
And he teaches in the district too.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
word. We've got about 5 minutes. I was thinking of any other pieces of Alderwood Manor history that
I was
might.
going to tell you something about the water.
Yeah.
When they put the water out there, it's the second highest place in South County. Gunnysack Hill on Highway 99.
Yeah, it's up there.
here.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
the highest place.
Yeah.
So they put the water in. In the summer, you'd open your faucet, and instead of getting water, you'd hear was air going into it because people were using all the water, and there wasn't enough water and pressure to put it up on the hill. So they
No
finally
way.
put, a few years later, they put a water tower out there.
I never knew that.
One of the
Where
neighbors had a well, and he left the well hooked up. And in the first summer, he looked for his water bill, and he had a negative use of water because it was sucking water back out of his well, and they just about had a stroke because it wasn't checked or anything. It was just a well.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Strange.
Wow. Oh my word. So schools were different for kids back then, and distance they had to travel, and things changed in the 50s, and Sputnik, and you started in 1960 and retired in 97. And have you kept contact with some of the kids?
Oh yeah, we still see people. We have potlucks in the summer with
Oh.
about 8 of us from my class.
Mhm.
There are a lot of them still live around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I think Chuck LaWarn was saying that there's a fair number of Edmonds High graduates that will get together for breakfast or things like that, see one another,
That
which is
group
really
is
neat.
the Meadowdale retired teachers, I think,
Ah.
that he's talking about.
Very cool. Oh, that's neat. If you were to give some final words of wisdom to young high school students, now think about it before you answer that. Based upon your experience as young people growing up in now Snohomish County and been a part of education, if you're married to a teacher, you know education. Any final words of wisdom or great thoughts that or advice for young people who would watch this about
I
schooling?
don't have any advice, but I can tell you this. We didn't have the temptations that they have today. You couldn't get booze
Yeah.
if you wanted it. You couldn't get cigarettes if you wanted it. And drugs, nobody knew what that was. So the temptations that they have
Yeah.
and the exposure that they have to some of the bad things in the world, we
Mhm.
never had anything like that.
Yeah. It's a
when-
different time.
When
Not
Clark
here,
Gable
anyway.
said "damn" in the movie, that was awful. So it's just totally different.
Well, Harry and Ada, I want to thank you both so much. What was the name of the song they played at the dances?
Mood Indigo.
Mood Indigo. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We'll make a copy, and the museum will keep this for all time. And thanks a lot, you guys.
I didn't finish it.